Welcome to the Next News Network. I'm Gary Franchi. Joining me now for the special web edition is World Bank whistleblower Karen Hudes. She's one of many of a coalition of whistleblowers who are making waves across the planet. She's joining me now in studio. Karen, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on. And the elite, the secret societies, the Vatican, they're traitors to humanity, because the one at the very core that's pulling the strings is a different species. They're not the human race. They're called Homo capensis. They have been on Earth together with humanity for before this ice age. And the reason I know about this is because I was trying to help out a movie producer who couldn't get his movie. It was called The Banksters Made Off with America, Edmund Drille, and he introduced me to his network of whistleblowers. One of the people in that network is a neurologist who went to Yale Medical School and was retired, and he was trying to find out what was at the very core of all of this corruption. This
species, an additional species of humans, or...
No, they're not humans. They are so distinct from humans that if they were to mate with humans, their offspring would not be fertile. They are critters. People who I am getting emails from saw them the day before. They look just like human beings, except they have these big skulls. And that is why in the Vatican, you see these crazy meters, is what they're called. It's really remarkable, actually, is that we have had so much evidence and we haven't had any studies into it. If you look at the archaeology, there is a civilization off the coast, because the sea level has risen by 400 meters. But what do we know about this ancient pre-Ice Age civilization? We do have a map that's left over from there, because it shows the coastline of Antarctica before the ice froze on it. And it's following that landmass perfectly. So what we have is we have evidence. I am talking about a large skull.
The elongated skull, the elongated cranium.
Some are in Peru, some are elongated. But in other places, they're just round like pumpkins. And the individuals that were seen in Egypt, I've seen drawings of what their skulls looked like. It was just massive, much larger than human being skulls. And also, you know, in a human skull, there's something they call the parietal, where it's in 3 different segments. This critter doesn't have those separations.
This specific species of individuals is occupying the Vatican and functioning through the Jesuit order?
Yes, but they're also working in the banks in Portugal, because one of the people who saw this, you know, in Saturday Night Live, there was a broadcast of something called the Coneheads. So that's a slang word for them. Although my mother refers to them as the boneheads. But they're alive and running around and doing all kinds of mischief. Akhenaten had this huge skull, and his daughters had this huge skull. So I'm going to presume that they probably also know that there are individuals, and they're not humans. They do not have the same kind of DNA that we do. And I can tell you what I know about them. They're very mathematical. Their average intelligence is about 150. And they do not have creativity. They're not emotional. And the other thing is that in the process of working with all of these whistleblowers, I've learned a lot about the strengths of Homo sapiens, because you know, we're not giving each other salaries, we're not giving each other honors, we're not giving each other anything other than additional hard work. But we also know who we're working for. We're working for all of humanity.
So I have to ask this question, because some of the viewers who are watching right now are going, they're talking about another species with an elongated skull. You mentioned the high intelligence, the lack of creativity, and it's going to be hard for people to grasp that reality. And of course, everyone has to do their own homework to discover these things. But given your whistleblower status with the World Bank, do you think that by promoting or discussing these types of theories hurts your credibility and all in the minds of some of the people who may have first heard of you through the whistleblower status at the World Bank?
I'll tell you what, I've gotten a fair amount of feedback like that, and I'll tell you what I say to these people. I say that it has been an incredible experience to have made it this far. And the number one thing that I've learned in that process is to trust my own intuition, because that has really served me very well. And my intuition is telling me that this is the time to tell people this.
Por su forma que tiene la cabeza alargada, las personas pueden decir que esto pueden ser de alienígenas, pueden ser de extraterrestres, pero esto hemos encontrado en una cueva, en un lugar muy secreto de Huancavelica, Perú. Como podemos ver ahí, miren, ¿acaso nuestros antepasados han tenido contacto con los ovnis? Según la historia y según las investigaciones que han tenido de la cultura Paracas, pues ha tenido una extensión de 17 kilómetros al norte de Cañete, hacia el sur hasta Arequipa. Son más de 25 cráneos que tenemos. Aquí hay una gran cantidad y en la parte de adentro también hay más cráneos en esa parte de allá. Y la verdad que todos los restos óseos, el fémur, la parte de la costilla y todo eso siguen ahí. Y otra cosa muy extraño que acabo de encontrar es esto, miren. Es este de aquí. Pueden ver que esto es una cabeza única. Descubrimos cráneos muy inusuales. Miren todo esto, amigos. Miren todo esto. Miren. Wow, miren esto. La verdad que esto no son cabezas alargadas, son de forma triángulo. Miren esto. Miren todo esto, amigos. Miren este de aquí. Me parece que esta parte y esta parte le ha crecido un poco más. Y miren todo esto. Miren. Miren cómo tiene la forma de su cabeza. Pues esta parte le ha crecido y esta parte también. En esta parte del territorio de la zona de Huancavelica, Perú, nos mencionan que ha existido dos culturas o tres culturas. Los huancas, los anjaras y otro, los chancas.
But a renowned paleontologist by the name of R. Broom went to South Africa and studied the Boskop skull and made certain observations. The skull had a very large jaw with large incisors and canines, a powerful jaw. The brain cavity was quite large compared to normal humans, was about 30% larger. And Bloom was of the opinion that this finding deserved to be called another species. And he defined or named this finding Homo capensis. And for those of you who have probably listened to Karen Hudes, the whistleblower from the World Bank, you've heard that name. So immediately became obvious that there was another candidate for mapping the Earth other than plain old human beings, Homo sapiens. And that candidate was somebody, or maybe something would be the name, who was not truly human, but of a different species. And what that means is the species usually means that reproduction or mating between different species does not produce a fertile offspring. That it's sort of a mule finding. That is to say, the union of a donkey and a horse produces a sterile mule. And so we have these two. We have this Homo capensis there. Now, it's interesting in that a paleontologist by the name of Fitzmyer did further investigations in that area, and I think maybe about 100 miles north, and found an area which was, appeared to be a communal living area, and there were human skeletons there, which were described as having been casually interred. I guess they were just thrown into the ground. But they found in the same area a rather elaborate tomb with a single occupant positioned so that he was facing the rising sun. And this single occupant, who had a normal appearing skeleton, had a very large head. So one could take this information as indicating that this large brain, this large-headed species, was dominant over Homo sapiens, was dominant over humans at that time. I'd like to show you another book, which is very important. This is by Brian Foster and David Hatchett Childress. It's The Enigma of Cranial Deformation, and it has many photographs of these large skulls. And Foster's done excellent work, and he's traveled around. I think he runs hidden Inca tours in South America. And he has actually managed to get some DNA studies done, which show that these skulls are not, or at least the skull that was studied was not human. He's managed to stay out of the way of establishment paleontology and archaeology, perhaps the secret to his success. Because the other part of the story, which I hadn't really mentioned and which is ongoing, is that all of this is ignored by establishment institutions. You would think that when you found a skull with a giant cone head, that when you told the establishment institutions about this, they would jump right on it, get their kit, and go and study it completely. But that does not happen. And this is highly significant. This is, in many ways, I think, the history of what's happening to us, the history of our decline right here, in that the universities seem to be filled with bright lights, with high IQs that are isolated in little dark boxes and don't really get their talent utilized or communicated as it should be, because the world is not made of little dark boxes. At any rate, there we have Brian Foster's work, and he has found skulls that are large cone heads. These are even larger than the Homo capensis. They're different in that they have large orbits, about 20% larger than human. They have one parietal plate instead of two, like we do. a very large, heavy cone head, and occipital frame and high in the occipital region. They also have very big incisors and canine teeth and few or any, if any, molars, which would seem to indicate that they are meat eaters primarily. So that's another another important finding, these large skulls, which the professionals ignore.
Huancavelica, también conocida como la Tierra del Mercurio, es un lugar cuyo territorio está sumergido en un gran misterio, ya que en sus montañas se encuentran ocultas las evidencias de vida antepasada. Pero lo más curioso de esto es que los restos óseos muestran deformidades como lo son los cráneos alargados, algo que genera una gran interrogante porque se desconoce su origen. ¿Acaso esto será evidencia de alguna cultura desconocida? La verdad no lo sabemos. Lo que sí podemos afirmar es que hay diversas versiones del origen de los cráneos alargados, como por ejemplo la leyenda de los gentiles, que es la que cuentan los pobladores más ancianos.
Pico no toche gentil con una cara.
Paikuna putisneyo kaspa achka wañura riki napi montunakus kampi wañura qaqa kunapi uchuku kunapi grupara ninanas rik papanchi putisneyo chay putisneyo tokoptin papanchi riki mana kananta munarachu chayta hinaptin uchuku kunapi nakus kampi liu kimasqarikurira payqa chayna putisneyo kaspa kanari kanampis kan putisneyo gran payqa rik tollullampas kuchukunapi monturiyachka chay mana asuykunachu oración taqono abuelo mahinaspaykim haykuykunkipis
Ungo chinchu chayta ronata.
Nes ongo ching mirikijo kanan kamap tullumpas paypaq pudesniyuqmi amanam laptanachu risakuna ñutukukata pagaykuspan haykunki chayna